I'm excited to hear what the panelists have today, but let me go and introduce you to Chris Jordan.
Thank you, Brad, and welcome again to everyone. I am excited to introduce our panel. To my immediate left is Howard Finkel with ocean carrier Costco. To Howard's left is Carl Warren. Carl is the Director of Port Development for CSX Transportation. Also pleased to introduce Aaron Donnelly. Aaron is Director of Delivery Solutions for the Home Depot. Our fourth panelist is John Edwards. John is the Vice President of Trade Port Logistics. And so with that, we'll get started.
CY cargo is fairly easy, no problem, especially Port Savannah here. It's one of the best ports in the United States, operationally excellent. Your problem is getting enough truckers, and the only way you're going to get that is one, driverless trucks, which is probably a couple of years away, or make sure these people get a decent living wage so you can entice more truck drivers in the United States.
There were two things that really struck me about Savannah. One was that even then there was a strong long-term vision, which I think is critical to success in this area. There was a willingness to look beyond the edge of the terminal fence. But none of these things would have been possible without a very strong alignment between the state and the port, and clearly understanding the compelling economic development, job creation proposition that exists by getting the logistics thing right.
One of the most important things to us in terms of partnership is collaboration and open communication to be able to talk about the problems. A trucking shortage for a carrier is a trucking shortage for Home Depot. So there is no difference in the problems we face and the problems you face. I'd rather be innovative and say, can we be more consistent even if we're slower, or can we be faster but more predictable?
You know, what we see at Tradeport is a need for more doors and more yard space. The typical buildings that are developed just don't have enough parking. As we see more containers coming in on these vessels, it's going to put more pressure on the outside infrastructure. I mean, the port has done a great job for us being ready for those vessels, but now we got to make sure we've got the buildings and the facilities outside of the port to be able to keep up pace. The needs we just see increasing. The bigger ships, if they don't have the infrastructure outside of it, we're going to see that volume either stay on the west or move to areas that do have the buildings and the yards to support the volume.
Anyway, we're at the point now where it's extremely competitive, and you got to get the lowest box rate you can to try to make money. We're trying to keep one service, one string for one terminal. We're trying to streamline operations. So I think the alliance concept is good, and why some people say, oh, we're not crazy about it because we don't really see enough individuality. It's a necessity for the lines to get it together, and it's a necessity to get the biggest vessels possible to get the lowest possible slot cost.
What the mega rail represents is that move to the next level. It's that move to accommodating the larger ships, dealing with larger blocks of inland intermodal cargo, and digesting the tremendous scale that comes with things like the harbor expansion happening, the bigger cranes, the bigger ships, the economies that the industry demands at this point.
Heard of it, we had the project called Sync. The ultimate goal being, if the supply chain's going smooth all the way to the end, that a box just comes off the truck and goes directly to the shelf. You don't get big swings of inventory that have to go in the overhead and then be reworked. The plan has been to continue to go further and further back in the supply chain, all the way to whether it be China or domestic, and say, we want everyone to know what we're planning, what we're forecasting, what the future is going to look like, so there's no surprises, so that we don't continue to cause each other problems by overreacting and swinging one way to the other.
You know, currently there's land, but it's being built on now. So the Savannah River International Trade Park has got about 5 million square feet coming out of the ground, where we have our 100-door cross dock and a 660,000 square foot distribution center coming up. But around that is just nothing but construction. What we look out at and managing for the future is that's kind of the last large block of land near the port. Everything that's under development now, as we look out, is going to be either up into Effingham or out into the I-16 corridor, further out Jimmy DeLoach. a concern as we look out, that there's going to have to be development further out. There's going to have to be continued infrastructure, as Ann talked about, to support that growth as we spread out.
But to keep growing, we need to keep looking at those opportunities to separate trucks, cars, and trains, especially in heavily trafficked areas around marine terminals.
More and more customers want things delivered to them, and not only delivered to them, but potentially assembled for them, and some value-added services that we're not used to doing. How do you bring a supply chain industry together with a service industry at the same time? So we have some technology roads that we have to go down. A few years ago, 2 days was making the news, right? You can get something in 2 days, and now that's the expectation. We are covering the entire country in 2 days right now, or the majority of the country, and the next goal is how do you get to 1 day, which wasn't even a conversation not that long ago.
We keep looking at ways to try to make things easier for the laborers to get to work, to find the hours they need. And the sector partnership is a really interesting thing right now for our area. The state has put money together, and there's a real energy behind bringing together those labor users and making sure that we've got a communication platform and conversations around how to keep those people busy. If I only need people Monday through Wednesday and those people are sitting home Thursday and Friday, that's not good for the whole industry. It's not good for Savannah. So
China needs our huge market, and we need China's inexpensive, I don't want to say cheap. We need China's inexpensive goods.
I can't underscore the importance of having a viable industrial land supply and really very carefully thinking about how to keep that linked to the port and to the regional supply chain.
So there's two big themes to the next 5 years. One is that we are going to be one supply chain. That's the name of the project, but that we utilize all the resources we have, and it doesn't matter who's going to buy it or where it comes from. We're one supply chain. And then we're going to make some pretty massive investments in getting close to the customer, opening local warehouses across the company so that we can provide same-day service to a large percentage of the population. Full steam ahead, not slowing down at all, and completely looking at infrastructure more than anything else to set us up for the future.
That was a great panel. Join me in giving a hand to Chris and the panelists here. Fantastic. One last thank you to our panelists, to Chris Jordan for moderating Pier 1, stage front, and the staff and servers here at the Savannah International Trade and Convention Center. And especially thank you to you for attending today's event, and we hope to see you next year at the 5th annual Savannah Logistics Lunch. Thank you very much.